So, Scott, a little while back, I got to check out a Darkpoint Games production called Achilles Legends Untold. And honestly, I gave this one a recommend when I first played through. It had some issues, but honestly, this is kind of an isometric, Souls-like, where we play as Achilles, and we're heading through kind of his story. And kind of the story we already know of Achilles, but it tends to take its own turn as you get through the game here. Honestly, I've had a good time jumping back into this one. I kind of knew what to expect, obviously. Like I said, I played this one before, but it's nice to see kind of the changes. It was almost a year ago that I played that, so being able to jump into the game now and seeing some of the changes, a lot smoother gameplay, which was kind of the complaints early on with the kind of original playtest, but now it seems like things have really smoothed out here, and I really enjoyed my time jumping into Achilles Legend Untold. What did you think getting kind of your first impression of this one?
Well, my first impression getting into this game was that I have to echo some of those testing, some of that early access kind of feelings. Some of the look to the game was a little lacking, and especially in that first cutscene. So we get past that first cutscene, and then we move into something else that just a little bit of an annoyance, a personal annoyance, that I couldn't disable the subtitles. Not game breaking, of course, just a little bit annoying, but I push that on, we move past, and what we get into is a little bit more of that isometric action game, and that's what I really had a hunger for. It looks a little bit like Diablo right on its at first glance, but when you get a little bit further in, it opens up. It's a whole lot different than Diablo, and I liked it for that reason. But I have to say the story really took a back seat, and I think that was based on that first impression. I kind of just discarded the story. I really just wanted to crush through and roll with the RPG elements. And for those elements, it did really well, actually. What did you think seeing this game all over again? It's been a year.
Yeah, honestly, like you said, kind of graphically, this game isn't, blowing our socks off by any means, but it does look good. I did notice there's some kind of textural pop in at times, especially when you're kind of going in and out of the shrines. And the shrines are essentially the checkpoint areas that Achilles can stop, rest up, add your skill points. We're going to get into the skill tree just a little bit later. It is, I think, a personal highlight for both of us. It was a lot bigger than we both expected, but the RPG elements of this game is really kind of what got its claws into me. The early playtest, I didn't really get to do too much. We got some basic weapons, a few skills, but we didn't really get to dive right into it like you and I did. And that's really where I kind of really started to enjoy myself, is that you get to pick up so many different types of weapons and different shields, things that have different abilities. There's lots of different modifiers, poison, flames. There's so much cool stuff they've added in here. Not necessarily things you would expect when you're playing a game like this. You think you're just going to run through sword and shield, and the action is what's going to carry you all the way. And that is still what happens, but we get to do it with a lot more customization. And I think for me, that was the highlight.
Oh, absolutely. That customization is definitely where it holds up, because it's not like Diablo where you're getting tons and tons and tons of loot. It's a little bit more relaxed than that, but you will find your favorite weapon, and unfortunately I found that weapon did not carry me very far. So a little bit of a point of annoyance. I was held up, and certain little boss fights, little areas that you'll get through, and there's too many enemies at once, large, really hard to damage enemies, certain things like that really kind of slowed down my progress, and that got really frustrating. I wanted to be the black swordsman, and cleave my way through the whole game, but I couldn't do that. I had to revert back to the sword and shield and keep pushing my way through. But what it did, that little point of annoyance, was actually a good thing, because as I worked through that, I realized, okay, I need to go back. I need to go and grind a little bit more. I need to familiarize myself with the combat a little bit better. And that get good mentality really pays off, because finally you get enough of this level up, you put those points into that ginormous skill tree, and I can start to actually tailor how I want to play. I can start to favor the shield, throwing the shield, and it bounces back off of 3 enemies, and the different kind of lean more into poison, level up my weapon. And now I'm coming back to that boss fight, and I'm doing 5-6 times the damage I did before. Now I finally feel strong, and that gave me that kind of refresh, so I could keep pushing through the loop, and just, that was where the real satisfaction was. Building my character up, and now I feel strong. The Achilles of Legend.
So if we had to score this one, because I think we've had a good time playing this, what are you going to give Achilles Legend Untold?
I did have a really good time playing this. My first initial reaction to the graphics was unfortunately negative, but I was able to put that kind of aside and get into the actual real action RPG elements of the game, where I had a really good amount of fun. I think there's a lot of game here for $25. I have to echo you there. I think this is a good value meal. And when it comes to the graphics, that can be all set aside. The map design is fun. That exploration loop is fun. And when you get that actual strength behind you, that feeling of, well, it's rewarding. It's a rewarding feeling. I had a lot of satisfaction out of this one, but I'm not sure if we're going to be talking about this one in a few years. So unfortunately, that leaves it at a 7.5 for myself.
Yeah, you know what? I'm right there with you, Scott. I think this game is good, but maybe not great. But for 25 bucks, I don't think we need to expect great. I think, like you said, we're getting the value for what we're paying for here, and I think 7.5 is a fair score for this game. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to kind of just going through and maybe a new game plus action coming up with this one.
Time has come to tell the tale of Achilles.